Welcome back to Mean Streets, where each week we investigate the best, worst, and forgotten movies of film noir.
I'm Luke Deckard.
And I'm Matthew Booth. And we are your cinematic sleuths. Today's case is 1938's Angels with Dirty Faces, starring James Cagney, Pat O'Brien, and Humphrey Bogart, directed by Michael Curtiz. The IMDb logline is a priest tries to stop a gangster from corrupting a group of street kids. Luke, is this a film that you knew before we decided to cover it?
I've known it in name, but this is the first time I've sat down to watch it. It's one of those movies. It's on every single list of must watch movie before you die. And I think like Rotten Tomatoes has it. I think who else?
I think Rotten Tomatoes has 100% favorable, I think, for this.
It does. See, I have problems with that. I have problems with Rotten Tomatoes putting aggregated reviews on really old films. Basically, if a film wasn't around, basically, if Rotten Tomatoes wasn't around when the film was made, I don't think they should be trying to aggregate reviews for it. Because they can't. They can't accurately do it. And it annoys the bejesus out of me that they try. Because it's really easy. Yes, this has a 100%, but like what? There's like 24 reviews.
Yeah.
Not everyone like you. I think you can go on Wikipedia and find a negative review. So 100% isn't a. It's not.
Absolutely, yeah. And let's be fair. I mean, there are some critics, in inverted commas, that will say pretty much any black and white film that is considered classic is a work of genius, and it isn't.
Yes.
No, they're not. What was interesting for me was because this is a film that I think I've mentioned it before, but my mum introduced me to this film because this is one that she really enjoyed when I was a teenager, and I've watched it since, but it's not one that I regularly go back to. So I was sort of reintroducing myself to it, and it's still one that I really like, but there are certain things that my opinion has changed about, which we'll get into. But two things that I really sort of have looked at in with different point of view in rewatching this. But this is a film I think that exists and is well known and is highly praised almost exclusively for its ending, which we will definitely get into.
Yeah.
Up until the last, I don't know, 5 minutes perhaps. It's a good story. And I think it's well told, but it's not a story that does anything different to other films of its type.
No,
until that ending. Yeah, we've probably put spoiler alert on, although we don't need to. I don't think everyone knows the ending to this film.
Anyone listening to our podcast is
everyone knows.
You got to be an idiot. You got to be an idiot if you think you're not going to get spoiled with everything we talk about.
Yeah, and for the ending of this one, you've got to be living under a rock if you don't know what it is. So.
Well, I didn't know the ending, so I mean, I went in.
Did you not? Did you not?
No. I just went in and watched it, and it's easy for older films for the I think the spoilers to sort of slip by when it's a film like this, when it's old enough and so far away that it's not in pop culture zeitgeist everywhere you look. It's not Star Wars. It's not Khan. You know what I mean? It's so far away that I think if you're not paying attention, it's pretty easy for this particular one to slip by. So, but even if I had known the ending, it wouldn't have changed my overall feelings or opinion, I think, on the film by any means.
No, and it, even knowing the ending, I found myself still sort of, in anticipation of it happening. Really, really looking forward to it happening because it is a good ending.
Yeah, definitely.
But I was struck by just how not pedestrian. It isn't pedestrian. I think that's a step too far. But it's a gangster looking for money that essentially has been stolen from him. And that's not a very exciting groundbreaking idea, is it, for a film of this sort of type, of this sort of ilk? So then it comes down to how well it's told, and I think it's told very well, and I think it's comes across very well. That there are some issues which we'll get onto, but where do you want to start with this one? Do you want to go into some production notes?
Yeah, let's go behind the camera. Let's start with some of that stuff before we dive into the nitty gritty of the story. It's only fair. I mean, yes, this is, as you said, this is it's not doing anything groundbreaking. It's one of many 1930s gangster films. Gangster films were the big thing of the 30s. Scarface, Roaring Twenties, G-Men, Public Enemy, all these sort of anti-heroes and getting their comeuppance and justice being, laid out, and
of which Cagney was a leading exponent.
Yes.
He was the sort of go-to gangster guy, even though he didn't particularly want to be. But there's the very famous bit of him squeezing a grapefruit into, I can't remember the actress's name, but it's a very famous still of him squeezing a grapefruit in her face, which sort of sums up James Cagney, or has come to sum up James Cagney, in terms of image. But yeah, this is one of many that we're going through from the early 30s to the late 30s.
Yes. I mean, it's interesting because you think about what's going on socially and politically at the time, and World War I is well over, but World War II is building. It's already happening in Europe at this point in time. There's bad shit going on, and you watch this movie, and it's like everything is fine in the world. There's no problems anywhere. There's a sort of head in the sand quality to a lot of 1930s films and films like this, and you kind of feel that with its moralistic, messaging. This sort of these films about how what is it? Crime doesn't pay. Like there's all the bad guys get their just desserts, and or there's redemption is possible, and it really gives you an insight into that sort of, I don't know, what Hollywood messaging of the 30s. And then we sort of offset that with some other films, things like like The Glass Key or The Big Sleep, where you don't really get that anymore. Once America sort of enters the war, that stuff I think feels like it's getting shaken up. So this is an interesting relic of it. It almost reminds me of, did you ever watch the Christmas film, A Christmas Story? We talked about this? No, I can't remember.
No, it's not one I've bothered to watch.
Okay, it's a fantastic Christmas film from the 80s, set in the year right before, set in the Christmas before America enters the First World War, told from the perspective of a child. It's all very Americana, what you imagine American Christmas to be like, that sort of stuff, but set in that particular period. Very funny, very hilarious, but it's interesting. One of the interesting qualities is similar to this, and that is there is no world outside of their world, and it is this like kind of final slice of peace before the world will eventually go to hell in a couple of months' time.
And I think that's because America was keeping its distance. As you say, so. The films that change it are the ones that post-date America's involvement in the war. So, and we British cinema wasn't innocent of that particular charge either. There was a lot of films that were very much a sweetened view of the world, perhaps, and really only concerned the 90 minutes of the life that it was presenting to you that you get. There was no sense of what had happened before or after. So I think it's just a general cinematic thing. Until something in the real world shakes it up, which of course it was about to do. So I'd take your point, definitely take your point. But I suspect that it's it's a matter of being a product of its time rather than anything else.
It's not a negative. You've
got to watch it. Yeah, no, I'm not taking it as a negative, but you've got to watch it with that sort of point of view in mind. That this is it's not a social commentary. I mean, it shows the poorer side of life in whatever city we're meant to be in. Are we in New York?
It feels like a kind of New York to me.
It feels like sort of Queens to me, or something like that.
Hell's Kitchen sort of.
Hell's Kitchen sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of that, with all the washing like stretched across the streets.
The washing and like the water towers on top of the buildings. It's very New Yorky to me. I mean, the opening, I don't want to dive into the story just yet, but I mean, just the opening shot where it takes place in the 1920s, because there is an interesting time. It's time jump. It begins in the 1920s, then jumps to the late 1930s. But yeah, I mean that opening set of like what would be 1920s New York, or we'll say New York for our purposes. It had a really cool look to it. A really nice vibe.
It's obviously a set, but
I could tell there was some of the water towers were flat.
Yeah. But as sets go, it's pretty impressive.
It's a good set. Yeah,
it is, and it works well. And we'll get onto the casting later, but the bloke playing the young James Cagney is absolutely superb.
I want to talk about him in a bit. That's the other thing is with these gangster films of the time. I mean, the reason they could churn these things out, they're a bit like Star Trek episodes, where the original Star Trek show, they used like Paramount, lot sets all the time. They didn't.
Yeah.
And that's why these films were so cheap and easy to make, because you're not going into massive production costs.
No. All you've got to do is watch. You've got to watch a handful of the Basil Rathbone and Sherlock Holmes series and a handful of Universal horror films to know that those films are set in the same universe, pretty much.
Yes, yeah.
With the exception of Holmes's rooms, everything else is exactly the same. So
yes,
and that in itself is a certainly in some of the Universal horrors. It's the same village that Boris Karloff terrorizes in inverted commas in the 1931 Frankenstein.
Yeah,
and that is. They spent the money building the sets. The gates that burn in Gone with the Wind are the King Kong gates. So they spend the money building the sets, and in order to get the money out of them, they keep using them.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that in my view. But you can tell this is a set, but it's a very good one, a very detailed one.
Yes. And the film itself, Angels with Dirty Faces, which is a great title. It made its money. $1.7 million from a worldwide box office. Was a huge success. But it's interestingly, so it's directed by Michael Curtiz, who is famous for things like Casablanca, which we'll cover at some point. I'm looking forward to covering that one.
Yeah.
But he did this film for WB, and according to reports out there, this film, in addition to The Adventures of Robin Hood and Four Daughters, basically rescued WB from going under, because apparently they weren't doing very well. So this is one of the several films that this particular director did that sort of salvaged WB.
Which is interesting when you think about it. I mean, The Adventures of Robin Hood is that's essentially a Marvel. We'd look at that the way that people look at Marvel films now. Yeah. A rip-roaring, or Star Wars films or something. A rip-roaring, lavish, totally leave your problems at the cinema door and have a really good time for 2 hours. It's also better than every Marvel film and Star Wars film in my view.
It's also probably the only Robin Hood film to make money in the cinema.
To make money, yeah, and it's still the one that people judge every other one by.
Yeah.
So I can sort of imagine that is escapism, and Errol Flynn was a big star and all the rest of it. Cagney was a big star, but this is a much more lower key production. So it's interesting that this is one of the ones that helped to save the studio. And I wonder how much of that is down to Cagney's charm and his box office appeal, because he was a star.
Yeah,
and also
I think it's 100% down to that.
and also the morality of the story at the time, which I think will have been welcome. But
probably.
But there's no doubt this is Cagney's film.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like, if you're going to compare it to someone today, I'm going to go with like a Tom Cruise. I mean, he's action man, but he's just like, he's massive star man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. People will have gone to see a James Cagney. Well, people did go and see James Cagney, whatever he was in. You know, so and he was very desperate to get away from this whole tough guy persona, which is why he does things like Yankee Doodle and all that. But people were willing to accept him. They may have preferred him as a gangster overall, but they were willing to accept him whatever he did because he was a huge star.
Yeah. He's a terrific actor. This is, as you say, this is his film. Now, I guess kind of going back to Michael Curtiz though a little bit. So he was Hungarian, I think he was.
He is.
Grew up in Europe. Learned a lot of cinematic tricks from growing up in Europe, and also German influence and things like that, which, you know, we all, as we've said many times, the German expressionism is very heavily influenced the film noir. So it kind of makes sense that he was able to take this film and run. I mean, Curtiz is interesting because he was able to just sort of take any genre and run with it and make it work.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's something not every director has the talent or ability to do.
No. And when you look at his filmography, there is a lot of variation there, you know, in terms of genre and variety of projects. You know, I mean, he goes from the Kennel Murder Case, for example, which is a Philo Vance film with William Powell, and then it's Captain Blood. You know, with Errol Flynn, and then suddenly it's Robin Hood, which is in the same sort of thing. Then there's this, you know, then there's historical dramas with Bette Davis as Queen Elizabeth and things like that. You know, there's a lot of variety going on in Curtiz's career, which, as you say, points to how good a director he is, and he's got some great noir films to his name as well, which, you know, we can cover in future episodes, but. He's a force, you know, and he was definitely influenced by silent cinema and by the, you know, European cinema at the time, and that's where he gets some of his flair from, I suspect. Yeah,
because when you look at this film, Angels with Dirty Faces, it is visually it is really nice to look at. The shot composition is fascinating. The way people look and dress and interact. There's a lot of very delicious visual stuff happening. The final scene that we'll talk about of Cagney doing his, you know, the walk to his sentencing, you know. It's there's so much. There is a lot of fantastic drama happening on the screen. So Michael Curtiz is doing his best to just keep you engaged. And he does that throughout his whole career. I mean, Casablanca is another incredible example of just a not only a, you know, powerhouse with actors, but just a visually pleasing film to engage with. And
I think it's fair to say that without Curtiz, this could have been, even with the ending, this could have been a sort of, in lesser hands, a schlock B picture that we wouldn't remember now. You know, I think it's important to stress that it's Curtiz and it's Cagney, and to a certain extent Pat O'Brien, but we'll come on to him. I said to a certain extent, remember?
Okay, all right.
Here's one of the things that I reevaluated when I was watching this film. But anyway, what was I saying? It's it could have been just a cheap, pretty vulgar B picture.
I think you're right.
Without the talent behind the camera and in front of it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. This film really, really walks the line very closely of teetering into just unforgettable B schlock.
And some of the best noir does that, though, doesn't it? Some of the best noir says it rises above its pulp origins to be something quite better than it has any right to be. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think one of the aspects that help not fall off and into that is one of the things that Curtiz said, and that is he's very much interested in the human aspect of a story, and was quoted as saying that the human and fundamental problems of real people are where all the really, really good drama is. And I think that's, when I look at this film as a whole, the thing that I take away the most from it is I loved the relationship between James Cagney's William Rocky Sullivan and Pat O'Brien's Jerry, priest minister Jerry Connolly. That relationship is really what, for me, it was the saving grace of this film.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were other things that on paper sound good, but in execution I found thin or fucking irritating.
Mean Streets will return right after this. Who doesn't love a good boxing movie? Well, Steve Hunt presents the Boxing Movie Podcast. On each episode, Steve and his guests discuss a movie that has boxing as a theme. Do not be put off if you're not a fan of boxing, though. Of course, he covers the likes of Rocky and the sequels, but the depth of boxing-themed movies across cinema history is much greater than you might imagine. Boxing Movie Podcast has covered the early works of Hitchcock, explored the world of blaxploitation cinema and the golden age of film noir, with episodes covering The Setup, Champion, and Stanley Kubrick's Killer's Kiss. You might not have previously considered yourself a boxing movie fan, but after listening to a few episodes of the Boxing Movie Podcast, you may have to reconsider that view. Find the Boxing Movie Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
If you love Mean Streets, join us on Patreon and get exclusive perks, insider access, and a chance to shape the show.
Depending on the tier of your choice, get early episode access, your name in the credits, and have your questions read on air.
You can help us choose films for us to review, unlock exclusive commentaries and reviews, and join our members-only YouTube Live Q&As.
So slip on your trench coats, pull your fedoras down, and join us on Patreon today.
Now, back to the show.
we might, I don't know, we might have a meeting of minds on one of those.
All right.
Because I think something quite unforgivable happens.
Okay. All right. Doing it. Well, just one quick aside, and that is the writers John Wexley and Warren Duff basically were given this script. It was actually written by a guy named Roland Brown, who's written a lot of film, not a lot of film noir, but he worked on various film noir like projects, and I think wrote on the TV show Mannix and stuff like that. Or oh man, was that? Am I getting that confused with? No, sorry. Warren Duff was the one who worked on Mannix. But yeah, Roland Brown was a Hollywood writer who had written this treatment, got it sold. Then John Wexley and Warren Duff were brought on to sort of punch up the story and revise it. But the thing is, Cagney later recalled about this project and saying that the actors then had to patch up the script. Because it just sounds like it just wasn't strong enough, and so they had to do a lot of improvising on set to sort of make it give it more of its flair, which is why I think both Cagney and Curtiz are the reason that this film is as good as it is, because I've seen you can watch films like, say, Ghostbusters 2016, and that film is dog crap. And you can tell that there really isn't a script, and you can tell that they're blagging it and they're improvising, and all their improvisation is just cheap, hokey comedy. Whereas here, you can't really tell what's cheesy writing or improvisation.
No, absolutely. You can't see the joins, definitely. Yeah. You can't see the joins.
That's in the plus column for this particular film.
And you're right. That's Cagney. That's Cagney and Curtiz. That is, without a shadow of a doubt. That's Cagney and Curtiz. And the film is better for it, because if you can't see those weaker sides to the script, then obviously it's all to the good, And I've said it before. It's down to Cagney's charm, and certainly in the role of Rocky Sullivan, he's got a charm. He's got an absolute charm.
Definitely.
So yeah, I think this is a good example of something that has its origins in the pulp goods that does something or does a few things to sort of lift it from being just another gangster flick of the 1930s. You know? Because there were so many of them that aren't remembered today, and this one is. There has to be a reason for it, and I think we're on the button about what those reasons are. You know. Yeah,
I'd say so. So, excuse me. So we can get into the nitty grittiness of the story. I don't know about you, but I did really enjoy the opening of young Jerry and Rocky. And as you mentioned it earlier, the actor that they got to play young Cagney,
Frankie Burke,
phenomenal.
In fact, I must have known it at some point, having watched it in the past. But I remember thinking to myself, I didn't realize Cagney played him, played the role all the way through as a young man as well as middle-aged man. That's and then after a while you think, has he got prosthetics on?
Yes.
Is it him? And then you think, of course it's not. It's not him at all.
Yeah.
But it's more than an impression, more than an impersonation. It's a performance, but it is a bloody good one.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You can be forgiven for thinking it's Cagney. The way he delivers the lines. Cagney's got this machine gun delivery style. And Burke captures that amazingly well. And he's got Cagney's got that nasal, tone to his voice. He gets that as well. I've no idea what he sounded like in real life. I've not been able to find any sort of clips of him being interviewed or whatever else like that. But what a performance this is. And maybe because I don't think he had a glittering career necessarily, but maybe he did his best work straight off and was never this good again. I don't know.
It's hard to say, but no, I was thoroughly impressed, and I had the same thought. I was like, wait, is this actually Cagney? And then afterwards looked it up. I was like, okay, no, it definitely wasn't. But there were moments where I thought, okay, well, the guy playing Jerry definitely isn't the young guy. So did they get Cagney to just like do himself up? The performance really is outstanding, and that was very impressive.
To the extent that what I felt when. Because when he gets sent down, you then sort of get a montage sequence of various, prison admission forms being stamped and all the rest of it with the sentence and the crime that he's committed. And and you keep seeing Frankie Burke, and then gradually it turns into James Cagney.
Yes,
and you can't. It's seamless. It's absolutely seamless. It's so, and there's no sort of fanfare about Cagney. He's got a cap on, I think, first time you see him, and he sort of just looks up, and you think, now that is James Cagney, but he looks exactly like that fellow would have looked if he'd grown old in a rough institution.
Yes.
So
yes,
the way that montage works, I was really sort of into that. Really, really.
I thought so too. So the opening sort of sets up your three main characters, sort of. So you obviously have Rocky, you have Jerry, and then you have Laurie, and they all sort of meet once as kids on the street. And Laurie, Laurie, looks up, and her little friend's like, "Oh, it's Rocky," and there's a little bit of like they sort of like the bad boy, and then Rocky comes down and he sort of teases the girls. And then they, then they run off. And I later in life, they Rocky then meets Laurie again, and I sort of had to wonder if I really needed them to have known each other as children.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I told you we'd have a meetings of minds.
Yeah, it felt a little coincidental, a little hammy, a little unnecessary.
To be quite honest, I wondered if we needed Laurie at all.
We don't.
And I think the script, this is one of my bugbears, I think the script realizes that because she disappears halfway through the film.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
And that's a real problem for she's either in there for the duration or she shouldn't be in there at all. That was a real problem for me.
Yeah, you could tell the film didn't know what to do with her. And it's a real shame. It's like, oh, we need a love interest. And Anne Sheridan is a gorgeous woman, gorgeous actress. It's a shame. It's a shame.
And there was quite a nice arc being set up for Laurie. You know, she starts off as a kid in the poor part of town, as Rocky does. She's then helping to run that pretty ropey slum of a boarding house.
Yeah,
that he has to go and rent a room from at Jerry's suggestion.
Yeah.
Which presumably is because he knows Laurie does it and he knows they were attracted to each other as kids and maybe he hopes something will come of it. I don't know. But nevertheless. Yeah. And then, so she starts up, but then she starts to, it seems to me, get seduced by the gangster's lifestyle. And she starts to, you know, start dressing better and sort of quite liking the money that's on the horizon, perhaps.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's a nice little trajectory coming here. And then she just vanishes completely.
Yeah. It was just all so thin for me. And I think that's what really frustrated me. It's you know, there's their first, you know, proper meeting is when they're kids, and then when they meet up again as adults, she does the thing where she pulls his hat down and slaps him, and she's like, "I've wanted to dance here since," you know, that was a cute little moment, and I didn't mind that. But then afterwards, she just, her sort of seduction to this life just felt very mechanical.
Yeah, well, and I think it is because I don't think the script wants her to be there. I think it's very much well, we've got to have a leading lady in this, otherwise it's just an all boys film.
Yeah, and obviously, I guess she can't get with the priest because I'm assuming he can't.
She can't get with the priest. Yeah, I can't get with the priest. So,
but like, what is her relationship with Rocky? What does that do for the film? What does that do for his character?
Do anything for
what
it.
Is,
doesn't do anything for it. No, it doesn't do anything.
No, very frustrating.
Yeah. And if she become the gangster's mole, which I think is what that they're sort of steering her up to be, they're setting her up to be.
Yeah.
And she should have been there at the end. She should have been there in at the kill, as it were.
Yeah.
But it's almost as if the minute he gets embroiled in the stealing or rifling Humphrey Bogart's safe, which we'll come on to, the film says this is what we really want. This is the story we really wanted to tell.
Yes.
So now we're on it. Forget Laurie.
Yeah, I mean,
well, in that case, cut her out, and save yourself 10 minutes of screen time, 15 minutes of screen time.
Yeah, and well, that's part of the big problem that I had with watching this, and that was, I feel like I watched 3 movies. Like the opening bit of Rocky and Jerry as children feels like its own movie. And then suddenly you're smacked in the face with a montage of Rocky in and out of jail, meeting Humphrey Bogart's character, and you see Bogart, Jim Fraser, you see him momentarily, and like, okay, right, oh no, wait, now get whiplash because he's suddenly back in jail, and then back in jail, and then suddenly he's free again, and you are left sort of being like, I don't really know how much time has passed, like. I don't know where exactly we are. Like, was there? It's almost like in a film, in like a modern films, right? When there's like a new special effect, like when Zack Snyder brought out the slow-mo bullcrap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and big that up. I feel like montage was like the thing at the time.
Well, it was.
This film has so many montages that are used to rush you through story and character development just because they need to hurry up and get it out of the way.
Yeah.
And that opening montage of Rocky going through jail was acceptable, but when they do it for the 30th time towards the end of the film, where the big crux of the film is told in montage, I just wanted to scream.
I do know what you mean. And I don't think we need the one where there's a montage of him making a load of money in the casino.
Yes.
You know, we don't need that one either. We need the first one to show how much time has passed by. You know, and I agree that's probably the one that we do need. But I don't feel I'm watching several different films, I have to say. I feel I'm watching a film which is about Jerry and Rocky. And the whole Bogart thing, the whole Bogart subplot of the files and the money is a way of forcing Rocky into a corner that means he has to be given the choice of what Jerry wants him to do. That's just like a murder plot, you know. My problem is Laurie. I'll go back to it. My problem is Laurie because she's totally redundant, and all the time that it's not about Rocky and Jerry and that fall that Rocky took for Jerry and the retribution that is going to require, I feel is wasting my time.
That's interesting.
But I can accept the Bogart subplot as a conduit to get these two characters into the position they need to be.
Yeah.
But whether that is well done or not is a separate issue. And also to give it a crime plot. It needs to have a crime plot. But I feel that any time that they're not on that road together is wasted time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with that. Yeah, it's
and that's one of the revisionist things that's occurred to me when I've rewatched it many years after watching it the first time. You know, the first few times, as an older but not necessarily wiser man. But you know, it's things that they start to stand out to you, things like that after a certain amount of time. You know, and you think, oh, just get on with it now. You know, and Laurie, I found really a real drag, I have to say.
She is a real
It's
drag.
a waste of Anne Sheridan. It's a waste of her talent as well.
Yeah, it is. I guess my problem is while Anne is a problem, she's not the biggest problem for me in the film. I have a bigger problem.
Go on, what's your big
we'll get to it in a second.
Oh, we'll get on to it in a minute.
I'll lead into it. But the other thing you mentioned is yes, it's you need to have Jerry and Rocky are on this sort of trajectory, and you need the Jim Fraser storyline, the gangster storyline. I'm fine with that stuff. I'm absolutely fine with it. The problem that I was having was at one point in the film, Rocky goes and gives 10,000 grand to Jerry for his sort of urban renewal project. He's very much into trying to help the community, and that was a very big thing. It's another big thing of the 1930s that was happening in the States, trying to pour into the well-being of the community by having youth centers and getting kids off streets and blah 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 blah. So that's that was an interesting thing. And also it's on like a biblical perspective. It's like he's giving him 10 grand of 100,000, so it's like 10. He's tithing his 10% to the church.
He's tithing, yeah. He's tithing.
All of that stuff was interesting. The thing that was that started to kill it for me, or not kill it, but make things very shaky and unstable, was that confrontation that they have, Rocky and Jerry's like, I can't take your money. It's gangster money. And, I don't want these kids, how can I continue with this project knowing that I got this built on dirty money? And that's his conflict. And then he decides, and he tells Rocky, look, I'm going to expose these gangsters in this neighborhood because I'm sick of their grasp on everyone around us. I think he really wants to attack it. And I was like, oh, cool. That this is really interesting. It's coming very, very, very late in the film, but it's a very interesting idea. And then this is another montage. He goes to one newspaper who's like, nah, we're not going to help you out. Then he goes to another one. They're like, yes, we're going to help you out. And then it's just montage and the newspaper man at the second one's like, of course we will help you out. Everyone trusts the news. Ha ha ha.
Oh yeah, of course.
And it's just like, oh, God. But then it's just montage of here's newspapers swirling in the screen and slapping in your face and, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly Jerry's in front of the microphone on a news broadcast, calling these people out, blah, 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 blah. And then it's all just like done. Bam, 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 bam. And I'm just thinking, wow, you've set up all of the interesting stuff, but you set it up really late in the game, like really, really late in the game, because everything is distracted and sidetracked by these fucking dead-end kids who I cannot stand for the fucking life of me.
I knew you were going to hate the Dead End Kids.
God, they were shit. Fuck. Honestly, I was watching this and I was like, this feels like I'm watching these kids feel like they're like a boy band of the era, and that's the only reason why they're in here.
Yeah. Well,
and God, they were annoying.
Yeah, they are annoying. And again, essentially they're a plot point, aren't they? They are a plot point. And but the Dead End Kids were themselves a sort of team of actors, for want of a better word.
Yes.
Who and they sort of morphed into something else as time went on, got new members and stuff like that. But they are annoying. But I think part of they're meant to be annoying, aren't they? They're meant to be annoying. They're meant to be punks until Rocky comes and puts them in line, which will lead me on to another point, another issue I've got with the story. But yeah, I struggle with the Dead End Kids as an older viewer. I have to say.
Yes.
I mean,
the log line of the film is about corrupting a group of street kids. They're already corrupted. They're already a bunch of dicks.
Yeah, they're already corrupted.
Like, he's not corrupting them any more than what they already are.
Well, we might as well get into my issue.
Yeah.
Because my issue is with Jerry. Because what the hell has Jerry been doing that allows these kids to be as they are, and they only get brought into line by Rocky in the basketball game? And the basketball game is a great metaphor for the whole story, really.
Yeah.
In that, I think Jerry is almost the villain of this film. Looking at it a second time, because he's responsible. He's got them playing basketball, but they're not playing by the rules. So the first question I ask is, why does it take a gangster, a convicted, violent gangster, to bring these kids into line? Why aren't you doing it, Jerry? What the hell have you been doing all this time? Because these are a well-established group of kids, and they know you very well.
Yeah,
you know, this is almost like the relationship between the kids and, I think it's Robert De Niro in Sleepers. You know, they know who this father is, Father Jerry is. And if they were sort of choir boys that were being seduced by the street and by other gangsters, then fair enough, you know. But like you say, they're already crooks. We meet them pickpocketing Rocky.
Yeah.
For God's sake.
Yeah.
So they're the wrong way around for me. We should see them morph into the Dead End Kids.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But my big question is, what the hell has Jerry been doing for all these years that have allowed them to become what they are and has maintained the possibility that they are what they are? Well, and why does it take Rocky to come and say, because, I mean, the basketball scene, I think, is really good. I love it. I think it's great fun. And it shows Cagney as a physical comedian. You know, when he throws the ball up, he simultaneously smacks one of them in the chin with his elbow.
Yeah.
You know, and he kicks one in the shin. I mean, he's essentially slapping around the kids. But they sort of deserve it, in my opinion. And then they say, well, we'll start playing by the rules then. You know, because someone's teaching us a lesson if we don't.
Yeah.
Well, what was Jerry doing?
Yeah. Well, this is where I also agree, and this is another huge problem with the film. And I to echo what you said, these kids being corrupted should have probably been kids in the church, not already street rats, because it doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
Because what does make sense to me is that Jerry is trying to be involved in urban renewal projects, and there are street kids he's trying to reach out to, and some of them won't. Maybe some of them don't want to get involved, but then get involved when, you know, when Rocky enters the picture or something, you know. So it's very unclear. And this is again where I go back to sort of like what Cagney was saying about them needing to sort of ad lib and punch up the script. I don't think the script is as tight. It's nowhere near. It wasn't ready, and even just the inclusion of the dead end kids, not the concept of the kids, but these group of actors, the dead end kids, felt more like a Hollywood producer note saying, oh, these kids have been trying to get in. If we really want to get these kids in a film, because, you know, the girls will come and see the dead end kids. They want to come see all the little pretty boys.
Yeah.
And maybe we can squeeze them into this film because it's yeah, sure, we'll push them into this. So that means they're already going to be what they are, and that they play these sorts of kids. They play this sort of crap. And so therefore I think in some ways I get a vibe that the film itself was just playing it very easy because, well, we don't need to worry about anything else. We'll just, these kids are coming at it with sometimes we talk about, actors who bring in preconceived ideas and the audience just knows these kids are that. Everyone knows that this is what they are. This is what they do. This is what this kind of stuff they portray. So this is what you can expect from them.
Yeah.
And it just, for me, it just didn't work with the story.
No. On a whimsical point, I mean, they've all got names like a bad set of seven dwarves, Soapy and Bim and Crab and Hunky. I don't buy any of that.
No.
And I don't think we need 6 of them. I think we needed one kid who was at risk of falling by the wayside or falling into petty crime.
Sure. Encouraged
by Rocky at first. To run for him, and do errands for him or whatever, as he does with the dead end kids.
Yeah.
So that essentially the ending can happen.
Yeah.
That's what we needed. We didn't need 6 of these jerks.
No.
And I agree. And I haven't been able to find, I don't know if you have, but I've not been able to find something that was absolutely categoric in saying they wanted to make the dead end kids stars, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all. We don't need them.
No,
we don't need them because all it did to me. Well, not all it did to me, but one of the major things it did to me was question Jerry, and I don't think I should be questioning Jerry.
No,
I think I should be on Jerry's side. I think I should be saying Jerry is stuck in an impossible position.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to do the best, and he's in the corruption around him. He's preventing him from doing it. That's why he's driven to drastic means to go on the radio, etc., etc.
Yeah,
So by shoehorning in 6 of these losers, you're sort of making me question a character that I should not at all be against.
Yes. No, I agree. And the other thing is. With these kids on set, they were assholes.
Yeah, I was just going to say one of the reasons I hate these kids is because they stole Humphrey Bogart's trousers.
Well, they stole his trousers. They were throwing in ad libs that were throwing people off. Cagney got rough with him on set, and they ended up stopping it.
Yeah, he essentially attacks him, doesn't he?
Yeah, he basically does what
Rocky does and punches him in the face. Because the other thing, not all some of these kids are in the 20s, so they're not even dead end kids.
Yeah, they're not kids. They're not kids, and they're not like 8-year-olds that he's punching. They are adults who are.
Oh yeah, we should make that clear for the audience.
These kids are not
children.
They're not children. They're clearly adults. They're clearly 18 and above. But they have this demeanor of smart ass punk bastard bitches. I can't stand them.
Yeah,
they're the kind of kids that you want to slap in the face. And then when you find out that on set, behind the scenes, they were throwing pies in people's face and stealing people's clothes and throwing people off because they just think they're so cool and funny. Blah, 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 blah. No wonder Cagney snapped and slugged
Absolutely.
One in the face.
Yeah, because Cagney was a professional, and it was and ad-libbing to throw the scene off kilter. No one's going to stand for that.
No.
And the other problem with these kids is that, well, I'm just going to start saying these blokes because that's what they are.
Yeah.
Is that the whole point of this film is that Jerry wants to save them.
Mm.
And I asked myself, but why? Why do you?
He's a local.
Why am I meant to care? Yeah, but why am I meant to care about him?
Yeah. Yes. Sure. I don't care about him.
I don't care about him. So let them go by the wayside. They're halfway there already.
Yeah.
Save some of the people who actually do need saving, Jerry.
Yeah.
And again, questioning Jerry's motives. Why are these kids so special?
The setup is all there because these kids are hanging out in the old haunt where Rocky and Jerry hung out as kids as well. So there's a wonderful bit of symmetry going on that could have meant more to Jerry. And this is where I was really struggling between in my likes and dislikes. And I didn't know where to put Jerry. And he's sort of in the middle. And it's because he's such a passive guy throughout the whole movie.
The whole thing.
That I'm like, you were interesting as a kid, and I kept waiting for him to come alive. And at no point in this film did I feel that he really came alive. I never felt that Jerry, the only scene he did that in is when the dead end kids don't come for the rematch of the basketball game, and he goes to the pool hall and he confronts them and he like punches a guy. That's the only time.
Yeah.
That I thought, oh my God, where the hell have you been?
Yeah. I do think he's effective in the end. I like it in the end. But again, I think to myself, now hang on, I don't want to say too much about the end just yet, but Rocky says something to him. He says, you're asking me to give up like the one thing they can't take away from me.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, on this viewing, yeah, Rocky's right, actually. That's exactly what you're doing, Jerry. And you're doing it because you failed.
Yeah.
I've not seen anything you've done. There's been no mention of anything you've done apart from getting playing basketball badly.
Yeah.
To do anything for these kids.
Yeah.
And I think and so to tie it into my Laurie prejudice, I think all the time she's on screen, you could be telling me what Jerry's done for these kids to try and save him himself.
Mm.
And I think I agree. I thought that the script needed one more go through, or maybe two more go throughs,
maybe more than that,
to exercise some of these ghosts that are hanging around it. I think. I
mean, the stuff that I love about this film, because I've been dogging on it most of the time. The stuff that I love about it is, I love this idea of it's gonna be crazy to say, but I almost would be fine if they cut Jerry out of this. Cut Jerry, cut the kids, because Cagney is the central point. And I love the idea that Cagney grows up in this life of crime, in and out of jail. The real relationship, the true relationship really should have been between Cagney's Rocky and Bogart's Fraser. That's really the heart of what this needs to be. Because the only thing that's of interest, the only thing that this plot is even dealing with, is Rocky wants his money back from his buddy who betrayed him, and what does that and how does he go about getting that? You find out the Fraser's actually just he works for another bigger gangster, and by Rocky coming back into the picture, it's upsetting the balance. So they then try to kill Rocky, and then Rocky and the drugstore scene is fantastic. The whole getting them, like doing them over, and one of the gangsters getting killed and Rocky getting away is fantastic. And then Rocky manipulating the situation to basically have the blackmail material and the control over them, like that to me was all the fun and interesting and juicy stuff. Whereas when you're dealing with Jerry and these stupid kids and Laurie, I'm just like, this hasn't been developed enough for me to be interested. The drama is over here.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to see more of. I was actually surprised at how little Bogart was in this film. This is before Bogart's Superstar, so he's not in it as much, but I just kept feeling more interested in the Fraser character and the Kiefer character, and wanting to. That was where the threat and the danger was.
Mm.
And I think because there wasn't enough development in old Jerry and old Rocky, and what their relationship meant now, that to me was the problem. Like if Jerry was legitimately going after Rocky the entire time, instead of just pretending to be friends, like everything was hunky dory, if there was serious clashes from the get-go, that was upsetting the balance of stuff. Maybe. But the only character that Rocky actually has that problem with is Fraser. He does not have that with Jerry at all.
Yeah, this is the closest I've come to agreeing that there are two films going on here.
Yeah.
One is the Rocky versus Fraser, which would be not just any old noir. It would be a good example of its type.
Yeah.
You know, but it wouldn't be this.
Mm.
And there's also the story of Rocky and Jerry, which could still be this.
Yes.
If you know, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I agree there's an overlap there that in retrospect is a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, because arguably it ends up being neither one thing nor the other. But what I suspect happened here is I suspect Roland Brown said, I've got a great idea for an ending scene.
Mm. And
I'll work back from that. You know,
knows,
so
yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that's a fact before anybody pings me and messages me or whatever. I'm saying that this film is so geared towards its ending.
Yeah.
And once the ending happens, you know that that's where it's intended to go from frame one.
Yeah.
That it is arguable, if you're really objective about it, that the ending then gets in the way of everything else.
Yes. Because basically what I feel should have happened is Rocky should have come out of jail, instantly got back in with the fold with Fraser. They're doing their gangster stuff. Rocky's corrupting some kids, getting them, as you were saying, do some running for him, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that begins the tension between what Jerry's trying to do for the community and what Rocky is doing to the community.
Well, that's how you would mesh those two.
That is entirely missing. That's entirely missing.
That's how you would mesh those two films.
Yeah.
And it would be even stronger, in my view, if Jerry had already saved the kids.
Sure. Yes.
And Rocky starts to poison them again and corrupt them again.
Yeah.
So that in the end, Jerry has to say, you know, you're undoing all the work that I've done. And that would then be a conflict between the two of them.
Yeah.
And it's that conflict rather than I'm sick of the corruption that prompts him to go to the radio stations.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, that would be a better hook and a better unfolding of plot than what we get, really. What we get is very entertaining. I am a fan of this film, but what we get is very entertaining. But part of the things that you have to do when you do something like we're doing now is you have to say, I love this film and it's very entertaining and I enjoy it and it's one of my favorites. But then you have to be able to stand back from it and say, but it ain't perfect. And, you know, and I can see it's not perfect. And this is why it's not perfect. And, but, you know, so you've got to be able to look at it with two faces on, I think. Because otherwise you'd have a perfect film and there's no such thing as that, is there? So,
yes, there is Blade Runner.
Which version? No, I'm kidding.
The final cut.
I'm kidding. So, yeah. So I agree. You know, it's the film's main conflict is with itself. I think that's really what I'm trying to say, in that it doesn't really know who should be doing what and when. All the ingredients are there. We're very fond of making cake analogies on this podcast, aren't we? But all the ingredients are there. We're just taking this cake out of the oven too soon.
Yeah. It's a very underbaked. I just and again, and that, you know, and I've said this a few times already, but the montages don't help it out. It's when there's an important thing happening, and that important thing is told through montage. I mean, even the end, you know, post Rocky's demise. Not his like demise, but once Rocky is arrested, and there's a trial happening, and like we're learning all about it through the dead end kids reading the newspaper, and I'm like, oh my god, what is going on? We don't need this. Just cut this crap. Just get us to the next scene. Yeah,
get us to the cell.
Because
there's no way, is there? There's no way that Rocky's getting away with it.
Yeah.
So we know where he's going to end up, you know, and and of course that's the end of his journey. You know, he's been sort of he's finally got nailed for the big crime, and what's more, it's the murder of a cop.
Yeah.
So we know where he's ended up. We don't need to be told, and we know that he's going to be found guilty. We don't need to be told that either.
Yeah.
But you know, those can become the montages and things like that become minor niggles for me, because my bigger issue is that I like you, I don't know what to do with Jerry, because I feel I should be on his side all the time.
Mm.
And I'm not. I'm on Rocky's side most of the time, and I'm not sure that's where the film wants me to be. for 92 minutes of its running time, I don't think it wants me to be on Rocky's side, but I am. Because I think he's doing more to fix the dead end kids problem than Jerry is, as far as the film is telling us. So, we don't even see any of Jerry's urban redevelopment project, do we?
No, we just go to them playing basketball at a gym, which is basically what that stuff was. It was, here's a community center, here's a place for kids to be entertained. That's but they're acting like morons in that place, So, and Rocky is doing the job that I want Jerry to be doing. Yeah.
Rocky should be breaking the law. Rocky should be corrupting. Rocky should be swindling and cheating. And Jerry should be, don't be like him, be like me. And I think if people were like Jerry, we'd all be passive, useless, waste of space. Because sadly that's how he came across on this viewing.
Yeah, he did. Passive, exactly. And I couldn't handle it. To the extent that I don't believe he's the same. I 100% agree and accept and believe in the fact that young Rocky Sullivan became the Rocky Sullivan who we meet later in the film. 100% agree. That's exactly what he turned into. Yeah.
There's no way that other, pardon the pun, dead end kid grew to be Pat O'Brien. No way. No. Because we've not seen it happen.
That kid maybe being a cop.
Maybe. But where's even the setup that he comes to be a priest?
Yeah.
He doesn't so much as say, I don't know what a Catholic phrase might be, or Mary, Mother, and Joseph, or whatever. Because when they get caught in the fountain pen train carriage, he gives nothing to suggest to me that he goes to church.
No.
Now I know people convert. I know people convert, and I know people find God and all the rest of it. But we don't see it happen. We just when Jerry arrives in the form of Pat O'Brien, you go, "Who's this?"
Yeah. Well, there is one scene where they're talking, old Rocky and old Jerry, and he does ask him about the priest thing, and it was very thin. It was sort of, I was sitting on top of a bus and I was looking at the church.
Oh, that's right. But
Rocky that's about as far as it goes.
But Rocky undermines that completely.
With a great line of being like, "Oh, I had an idea once. It got me arrested."
I had an idea on a bus once. It got me 3 years. That's a killer line.
Yeah.
So that's probably why I didn't remember Jerry talking about the church.
Well, exactly. And because I was thinking, okay, great, you're going to tell us something about your conversion. Oh, no, you're not. You just drove past the church one day. Okay.
Yeah. I do that almost every day.
I know. It's like one outside my house. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, I need more than that.
I can't remember the title of it, but there's a Batman animated series episode, which essentially is this film. And in that, I think the brothers, instead of Rocky and Jerry are brothers in that. Or that they're the equivalent characters.
Yeah.
The episode is called "It's Never Too Late." And that 30-minute cartoon does more to give a backstory to everybody than we get here. But I can almost forgive the film for that, because it's in love with Rocky, and Rocky is the center point. And quite rightly, Rocky is the center point, for reasons that I've said. But it does then make for a good stretch of the runtime, you are thinking, well, do something, Jerry. Do something, because at the minute you're paling into insignificance.
Yeah. Oh, I wholly agree. I guess should we talk about the ending? That's the big ending. The big ending.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, as we've hinted at, if you've not seen the film, I don't know why you're listening to this. But actually, I say that, but I fully do this with other podcasts where I will listen to podcasts of like review podcasts where I'm like, I'm not going to watch this film, I'm not going to watch a TV show, but I will listen to you guys talk about it. But yeah, so obviously, Rocky gets arrested for all of his crimes. And there's a big epic shootout that happens, and very fun, very
great. Which is very good. Yeah, it's very good.
Wonderful drama.
And it was a sequence which convinced or made Cagney say never again. I'm never using real bullets ever again. Because
he almost died.
Because he almost died. Yeah, he almost got shot. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you watch it, it is a very, it feels real. Like the sort of standoff between Rocky and the police at the end when things go sour with the gangsters. It's a wonderful segment of the film. It is probably my favorite segment of the film. That followed by the actual ending of the movie. Those two things in the very opening scene of the film, I think are three very great moments. So Rocky gets arrested and he's going to go to jail, and then he's going to get the death. He gets a death penalty. And there's this conversation between Jerry and Rocky that's interesting. And this is where it's like, I like the concept. I like this idea of duality, the priest versus the gangster, right versus wrong, God versus devil, corruption versus light. I like the concept, the ideas, how well the film actually delves into them is another topic. But there is this, I do sort of like that final conversation between Jerry and Rocky or one of the final conversations they have, and that is Jerry wants Rocky to give up this gangster life. He's like, I need you are a fantasy to these boys, and I need you to stop it. Because the more they look up to you, and in a way, there is a little bit of sort of conservatism going on, of like fetishizing the gangster, the bad guy, the thug life. And conservatives being worried that, it's going to corrupt our children. There's a bit of that happening with Jerry that just sort of irritated me as well. But I also get what he's, if we're talking about, he's saying it because of these specific children, I guess what I'm saying, there's an element of the film talking to the audience.
Yeah, well, it's
also about Jerry and Rocky.
Yeah, he wants to break the circle. That's what. Yeah. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
But you're right. It comes across as purely for these kids, these specific kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you have to ask yourself why. So, but we won't go over. We won't go over old ground. But
we won't do that again.
Because the way I'm going to approach this ending is, for all the things we said about the dead end kids, I take the film's point. There is a group of kids that need to be saved from a life that they are very perilously close to living. So I'll take that idea, and that's what I'll concentrate on, rather than the morons that we actually get. That's the way I'm going to approach this.
Sure.
So Jerry's got this bunch of kids that we've not seen in the film that he wants to save from a life that Rocky fell into, and also the life that very nearly could have been his.
Yes. And so I guess the ending of this film is Rocky is led to the electric chair, and
Jerry asks him to do something. Jerry says to him, I need you to turn yellow. I want you to go to the electric chair as a coward. and this is what I referenced before a little bit earlier on. Rocky's instant reaction to that is not a chance, because you're asking me to give away or let them take the one thing I've got left, and that is my reputation.
Yeah.
And I won't do it. So Jerry says, but if you don't, they'll end up just like you and it'll never end. Paraphrased.
Yeah.
And he says, essentially, do it for old time's sake. And Rocky says, no chance. I'm gonna leave with one last spit in their eye, he says.
Yeah.
Whereupon he punches a policeman in the face.
First, before we get there, what do we think of Jerry asking this of Rocky? And do we think this ask is really going to change anything?
No. I don't think it will change anything. I think it's an idealistic ask. It might have changed it with a different child, you know, might have done that. But there will be another in this sort of cinematic world. Gangsters are like buses, aren't they? There'll be another one come along, you know, that the Dead End Kids will latch onto.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think it would work outside the confines of the film. What do I think of Jerry asking it? Part of me wants to say,
in my opinion,
it's a what?
Bit of a dick move, in my opinion.
Yeah, and part of me wants to say it's a bit rich, is what I was going to say, because as I've said, my view in watching it this time round was that Jerry's failed.
Yeah.
So he's asking Rocky to put right what he can't achieve. And why should Rocky sacrifice his dignity for that? You know, that wasn't. It's not Rocky's project. It's Jerry's project. So Jerry should get on and do it.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a big ask.
Yeah.
I do think it's a big ask.
I think, and that's my problem with their relationship. And this is why I'm like, their friendship as older men, I don't care. Like, I'm not seeing a relationship. I don't care about it. That's why I'm more interested in what's happening with Frazier and Rocky, because there's real drama going on there.
Yeah, I can take your point on that. I do take your point on that.
You know, like the moment Bogart's character, when Rocky asks Frazier, you know, you're going to take me back into the fold. We made this deal together. You're gonna fucking stand by it. And then when Rocky leaves the room, like you can see the look, like the expression on Bogart's face is like, shit.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and he's nailing it. Like he's shining in those 5 seconds of screen time that he has in this movie.
Yeah. Well, and the film crackles when Bogart and Cagney are together. There's no denying that. The film is on fire when that happens. But in a different way, I think it's on fire in this. But again, it's all down to Cagney.
Yes,
it's all down to what Cagney does in those close-ups, as he's taking the final walk to the chair.
Yeah,
and it's all done very expressionist. It's all shadows and light. But rather, I should say light intruding on shadow, because that's that's how it's filmed. And what happens is that he flatly refuses to do it. He flatly refuses to sell his pride, I suppose, as well as his reputation. And he's utterly defiant until he gets into the shadow of the electric chair. And the camera's on Pat O'Brien, on Jerry, and you suddenly hear sobbing. And I don't want to die. Don't do it to me. Give me one more chance. It's all done in silhouette with Cagney fighting against the guards. Jerry starts to cry. Then there's a what I think is a powerful shot of Rocky's hands on the radiator, gripping it for dear life, and they pull him away, and then the switch is pulled.
Yeah.
So the big question that surrounds this film that nobody's satisfactorily answered one way or the other for me is: does he is he genuinely scared, or is he doing it for the sake of the friendship and to save the kids? Now, I'm not going to offer any answers. I think you can argue it both ways.
Yeah,
I know what I think. It depends how strong my sentimental streak is. But I think there's something nice about the redemption idea that in the end we don't know what we're going to be like when we face our own death.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what's going through his head as he's walking down those prison corridors. Cagney himself said, "It's virtually impossible to say which course Rocky took, which is just the way I wanted it. I played it with deliberate ambiguity, so the spectators can form their own opinion."
Yeah.
Crucially, he says, "It seems to me it works out fine in either case," and I think he's right.
Yeah.
I suppose it comes down to whether you believe Rocky, in the wake of his own death, based on what you've seen so far, would be terrified, or whether you believe that he would knowingly throw his reputation down the drain in an effort to save those kids.
Yeah.
It depends what you think, what sort of person you think Rocky is in the final moments of his life. And I do think it's difficult to answer. But the way that Cagney plays it is absolutely fabulous to me. And the ending makes the film. I said at the outset, without this ending, this film would just be a B movie.
Yeah, no, the ending elevates it a little bit more as well, and that there were questions early on whether Cagney would even take this kind of role, because why would he take a role about a coward, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
but that was the thing that actually interested him. He was like, no, I want to do this. This is
he wanted to flex his acting chops.
Yeah,
because he didn't want to. He'd been a tough gangster in a lot of films, almost in quick succession.
Yeah,
from the early 30s. So he wanted to do something different, and he thought this was the vehicle to do it. And I think it is. I mean, it's haunting. I think the ending's genuinely haunting.
Yeah, no, the ending is a very, very, very good scene. Maybe this is one of those scenes that Roland Brown had written from the very beginning, and I don't know, and maybe Wexley and Duff just sort of played with it a little bit more. I don't know.
Well, I think I said something similar earlier on, and I think I could be easily persuaded that this was this final sequence was him in his mind, and that's what he wanted. That was the story he wanted to tell. That was the ending he wanted the story to have. Yeah, and everyone else comes on board and hijacks it to a certain extent.
Yeah, and I think that might be where this, because it is probably one of the strongest scenes. I think the two strongest scenes in this film, or maybe three, would be, one is the opening between young Rocky and Jerry. The next being the shootout, and then the final being this walk to your death scene. Those three bits felt very solid. The rest is, in my opinion, unfortunately, I just feel like the rest is a mess.
Do you have a strong opinion one way or the other about what Rocky's doing in the ending?
What do you mean? As in, like, is he going yellow or not?
Is he faking, or is he genuinely scared? Do you have any strong opinions?
Not really. I don't. I think if I cared about the kids, I could buy him doing it for the kids. But I don't. I find them all jackasses, and none of them are going to change. None of them are going to change, and that's my problem. Is even when they are reading in the newspaper, like, no, he would never do this. Holy God, gee, God, girl.
And then when Pat O'Brien says, well, he did, they instantly believe it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. What? So no, I don't feel that because those kids are so fucking annoying and irredeemable, in my opinion. There was nothing redeemable about them. I didn't care about them as characters. I don't care about their futures. I don't care. They just irritated me.
This is why I say I'd take the idea of children that need to be saved as the idea when it comes down to assessing this ending.
But the thing is, that only works if you know the guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So if some random kid reads about this in the newspaper, oh, some gangster was caught in New York and he was given the death penalty and he went yellow and the
But if it was what we said before, where he does get to meet Rocky, Rocky gets him to do errands for him, and it's just one kid.
Sure, if it's like a one kid, couple kids situation,
one kid or a couple of kids at most, and they do start to be seduced by the glamour of the gangster life.
But that doesn't happen in this film, so I can't.
No.
I can't judge his reaction.
No,
based on a hypothetical 100 years later.
I can, and then I sort of, but my overriding reaction to this ending is, brilliant as it is that it doesn't really matter, and I don't care which side of the fence you fall down on, because there's always a difference between an ambiguous ending and an ending that makes no sense, or an ending that is just pointless and meaningless.
Yeah.
This is a genuine ambiguous ending to me, and I will not sit down and argue with somebody who feels strongly one way because he might be right.
Yeah. I won't
sit down and argue with somebody who thinks the opposite to him because she might be right.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know which of them is right. And I think it's all the more powerful for that.
The only thing you could look at for any sort of final argument is that final shootout scene. He sure as shit wasn't afraid of death then.
No, he wasn't afraid of death then. No,
in the slightest. And that was a warlike situation.
Yeah.
He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't being a coward. He was, you know, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance.
Well, he was. Yeah, he was.
The whole situation.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And he's not shown any indication previously in the film that he's scared of anyone or anything.
Yeah.
But we don't know what we're going to be like in the face of our own death. You know, so there's always going to be a doubt there. I know what I think. I know what I want to believe.
Yeah.
Even if the film doesn't set it up properly for necessarily. But I know what I want to believe. And that sense of redemption does seem to make for a more satisfying end, albeit a more cinematic end.
Yes.
But
happy ending with a happy message.
Yeah.
The gangster goes yellow in the end.
This is 1930s Hollywood.
You're a coward.
This is 1930s Hollywood. Yeah.
Oh, jeez, man.
But I think, I mean, its endings go. The way it's shot, the way it's acted, what it is intended to be.
Yes.
Is really good. It's very strong.
Good. It is a good, powerful ending to a very messy film.
Yes.
I would say. Because in sort of like closing remarks, I guess. The other thing that's interesting to me is the title of the film. Angels with Dirty Faces.
Mm-hmm.
Who the fuck is that title about? Because those kids are not angels. They might got dirty faces, but there's nothing angelic about those assholes.
No, but is it? Does it solve the question of the end in a metaphorical sense? Is Rocky actually on the side of the angels when it all comes down to it? But he's been dirty as sin all the way through his life.
But it's plural.
Or in that, well, yeah. So is Jerry also, bearing in mind what we've said throughout the episode, is Jerry on the side of the angels on appearance's sake, but he's as rotten as they come?
I don't know. But I was sitting there watching this, and at the end, I kept mulling over the title, Angels with Dirty Faces. Angels with Dirty Faces.
It's a great title. But
it's a fantastic title that I don't think makes any sense with this film.
No. But some titles don't make sense, do they?
Some titles don't. But this one just, I think, again, because the kids were so annoying. And I'm like, the only thing you can apply that title to is the kids. That I'm like, but they weren't redeemed. And they're not redeemable. And they weren't angels. They were anything but.
So I've just done a quick Google search while we've been talking.
Yes.
And as far as the most swift Google search of all can tell me, the title refers to the film's theme of how adults can influence young people and how the kids in the neighborhood are affected by Rocky's criminal activities. Now you're going to take issue with that, aren't you?
Well, yeah, because
those kids are like the kids we get are like it before Rocky arrives.
Exactly.
He has no impact on them whatsoever.
No.
Apart from making them play basketball by the rules.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's just
that they are a problem, the dead end kids. But it doesn't necessarily detract from the film's message to me, albeit that it's a very cinematic message.
Yeah.
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 If I went into Moss Side area of Manchester and said to a priest, why don't you get one of these gangsters to speak to the kids and say, don't turn out like me? Well, he just laughed me out of the church.
Yeah.
So it's a
very
very
1990s or 1980s scared straight.
Yeah,
vibe.
yeah, vibe, yeah. But the sentimentalist in me likes it, and from other episodes, I can be very sentimental about certain things, and I like the idea of that redemption, of sacrificing yourself to save someone else. I'll be a sucker of that all day long.
Yeah,
and that's I said I wouldn't get into it, but that's what I think Rocky does in the end. I think all the evidence probably is pointing you in that direction.
I think so.
But the downside is that the kids don't deserve saving. The kids we get don't deserve saving.
No, nor are they saved in the end.
No.
And that's where I take issue. They didn't just display anything that was worth redeeming, and then at the end they still don't do anything that demonstrates they want to be redeemed. So it's just like what a waste.
Early on in the film, those kids, the dead end kids, make what I think is a really good cinematic message.
Yes.
Fall flat, and the reason it doesn't wholly fall flat and fall through the floor is Cagney's performance in those vital moments.
Yes.
But early on in the film, there is a scene where Pat O'Brien is with a church choir with altar boys, and one of them, as a close up, I seem to remember, is singing whatever church piece of music it is. I don't know, Ave Maria or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, if it was that child who we see not wanting to really be in the church choir because he thinks it's a bit lame, he's getting bullied because of it.
Sure.
So he starts getting into scrapes, and Rocky gets his claws in him.
Yeah.
And at the end, Pat O'Brien says to him, "Let's go and pray for a kid who couldn't run as quickly as me," which is a great closing line. And you go back to the church so that symbolically the child is welcoming back the church, then the message would have worked, and Rocky's sacrifice would have been for something. And that would have been so saccharine, but it would have been like more believable that it's had an effect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, I talk about this, as we said at the beginning, there's no sense of the real world outside of this film. So all I'm saying is very much in the brackets of this is the world.
All those dead end kids are going to get drafted in a couple of years anyway.
Yeah. So it's all been for nothing. But yeah, so that's my final thought. I think the ending is absolutely magnificent, and I think that its message is solid, and I think that the evidence is that Rocky does it for the right reasons and for the reasons that he's asked to do it.
Yeah.
And that he dies a hero, essentially.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's just
Yeah. No.
I'm a sucker for that.
I don't disagree. Interestingly enough, the title of this film is referenced in Home Alone film and the Home Alone sequel, Home Alone 2. And there's two very famous lines in Home Alone where Kevin McAllister is watching an old gangster movie, and the movie that he's watching, the first film is called Angels with Filthy Souls, which is a fantastic title.
It's fabulous.
Absolutely fantastic title. And then and that's the one where he's like, "Keep the change, you filthy animal." And then there's the sequel where the sequel is called Angels with Even Filthier Souls, which is just funny. And that's the one where the guy says, "Merry Christmas, you filthy animal." And something we stamped on all of our Christmas cards this year, which was fun.
You did, yeah, you did.
And my wife was like, "Are people gonna think? Are they gonna know what it's from?" I'm like, "I don't care." If you don't know what this is from, then like, come on now, come on. But yeah, so this film has it's had its cultural impacts for sure. As we said at the beginning, it's one of the it's quite revered. It's on all of the 100 best of lists from pretty much every organization out there who compiles these sorts of things. Yeah. I mean, I would say that I recommend it, but I have to admit that given its prestige, I found it disappointing overall.
Well, this is a problem. I think at the outset of the episode, I said some black and white films people just give classic status to, and that doesn't necessarily mean they are perfect. And I do tend to wonder if this is one of them. I love this film, but I can see its flaws, and to blindly say it's iconic, I'm not sure it is. The ending is iconic. The ending is iconic. There is actually a sequel of sorts. Did you see this?
No. Oh God.
So Anne Sheridan returns with the Dead End Kids.
Oh my God.
And Ronald Reagan of all people.
Oh.
But it's not a sequel as such, really. But it's called The Angels Wash Their Faces.
Oh my God.
Originally, it was going to be called the Battle of City Hall, but it was changed after Angels with Dirty Faces was such a massive success, and because they got Anne Sheridan and the Dead End Kids back, they changed it to The Angels Wash Their Faces.
So is it
just goes to show? It just goes to show Hollywood's always had a side to it.
Yeah. Oh, right. Wow. So it came out like the next year.
The next year. But as far as I can see, got absolutely. Well, it's about a bloke who's released from reform school and taken to live with his sister. But aside from that, I can't see that it has any ties at all.
Well, Anne is playing a different character.
Character. So it's typical Hollywood cash-in. Yeah. This Angels with Dirty Faces was a big success, and it got Oscar nominated. So let's change the title of this ropey little Ronald Reagan film to cash in on it because we've got the Dead End Kids in it.
Ugh. Oh,
before you ask, Luke, I don't want to cover it on the show.
Nope, it's okay. We're not touching that with a 10-foot pole. No way. Well, I guess we should rate Angels with Dirty Faces. As everyone knows, if you're a regular listener, we rate all of our films out of 5 Falcons, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Angels with Dirty Faces, 1938. Matt?
Well, as I said at the outset, this is an old favourite of mine, introduced to me by my dear old mum, and that ending is a killer. Cagney is fabulous. There are issues, the Dead End Kids, the total abandonment of Laurie, and particularly on this reviewing, wondering what the hell Jerry was doing with his time. So I'm knocking a Falcon off that, but I'm going to give this a 4.
Okay. Fair. I always think about why do I give certain ratings and other things not. And one thing popped into my head as I was mulling this film over the other day, and it's rewatchability. Do I want to ever rewatch this film? No, I don't. That's the answer. Which to me, it's like, okay, that automatically knocks off a Falcon. So bam, goes from a 5 to a 4. And then once I start taking everything else into account, the thin character of Laurie, the abundantly annoying dead-end kids, the passivity of Jerry, this is all, like that's another Falcon gone for me. So it's Angels with Dirty Faces is, I will be generous and give it 3 Falcons. I think giving it less than that might be being mean. Because Cagney is fantastic. There are some scenes that are terrific scenes. Visually, it's great. It's got some good music. We didn't even mention Max Steiner, guy who, King Kong, Big Sleep. We've talked about him in our very first episode. The music is good. It looks good. It is well acted generally, except for those kids. It is well acted. So I feel like it'd be mean if I give it less than that. So I 3 Falcons for.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. If anyone is a fan of the Dead End Kids, get in touch. we can't promise we'll reply, but I don't think there'll be very many. There won't be very many people to reply to. I shouldn't think.
No, there's going to be some like backwater Dead End Kids fan club that is going to come after us.
Come after us. Yeah, absolutely.
Those guys on Main Streets were digging on the Dead End Kids. They were hot stuff 80 years ago. Okay, well,
all right. We'll name them.
I reckon that group could name them, but if this group that I've invented exists,
yeah, if they exist, then by all means let us know why we're wrong.
Yes. Oh man, but yeah, there we go. I think we've thoroughly investigated Angels with Dirty Faces.
And just for the record, I would also I do recommend this film. I think this is a film that is certainly worth people's time.
Rent it. My advice is to rent it. Don't buy it. And if you like it, then go buy it.
Can't say fairer than that.
Well, that wraps up our investigation. Thanks for listening. We will be back next week with another case. In the meantime, please like and subscribe and be sure to take care walking down those mean streets.